Less than 500 years ago, death by boiling was a punishment that was widely used in cases of particularly serious offenses such as counterfeiting money, poisoning, or exceptionally violent crimes. One of the best documented cases of an execution by boiling is the case of one Richard Roose, who was executed in Smithfield, London in 1531. We know very little about this man except that he was the cook of the Bishop of Rochester. One day in winter of 1531, he prepared porridge for his master and his guests in the kitchen of the bishop's palace in Lambeth March. As was customary, the leftovers were distributed to the poor and needy. Soon after, the alarm bell was ringing because all those who had eaten from the porridge suddenly fell seriously ill. 2 of the beggars even died a while later. For unknown reasons, the bishop himself had not eaten of the porridge and took no harm. Investigations revealed that the porridge had been poisoned, and Roose was arrested and questioned. He admitted that he had mixed laxatives into the food as a joke, but with no ill intent. King Henry VIII dealt with the case in the next sitting of the Parliament, which promulgated the Act of Poisoning, a decree declaring poisoning to be high treason and prescribing death by boiling as the appropriate punishment. Soon after, Richard Roose was boiled to death in Smithfield on April 15, 1532. The executioner tied him to a pulley system that resembled traditional gallows and slowly dunked the poor cook into a huge cauldron of boiling water 3 times. Because this execution was particularly spectacular, it attracted a huge crowd. After about 2 hours, Roose finally died. In most cases, the condemned person was not simply thrown into the liquid. Sometimes the torture would be prolonged by tying the victim up in cold water, which was then gradually brought to the boil. In some cases, the victims were hung upside down and immersed with their heads first. In other cases, their knees were tied to the chest so that their butt plunged into the boiling liquid first. And sometimes they were simply hung in the steam horizontally. Probably the earliest references to this form of execution are found in the martyr stories of Christian saints. For example, Saint Antipas is said to have been executed in a bowl-shaped vessel. And the tale goes that John the Evangelist was boiled in oil during the persecution of Christians under the reign of Emperor Domitian. But reports of executions by boiling can be found from all over the world. In Kyoto, for example, the legendary Japanese bandit Ishikawa Goemon is said to have been boiled along with his son in 1594, as punishment for an attempted assassination. In Germany, in Nuremberg, a clothmaker was executed this way in 1392 for allegedly raping and killing his own mother. And in Stralsund, a counterfeiter was thrown into oil to set a warning example in 1471. In the Dutch city of Deventer, the execution cauldron still hangs on the wall of the city museum today. But in some cases, not everything went according to plan. In 1488, in the French city of Tours, a counterfeiter named Louis the Secretary was sentenced to death by boiling. First, the cauldron was filled with cold water and only slowly heated up. When the executioner had tied up the victim, he threw him into the cauldron head first. However, quote, as soon as he was thrown in, the corpse became so loose that he twice rose to the surface of the water, crying for mercy. End quote. This outraged the people, who began to shout at the executioner, while the latter tried to push the condemned down under the water with a large iron hook. When Louis kept coming up, the citizens who were watching attacked the executioner and beat him to death while pulling Louis out of the cauldron. In the late 16th century, execution by boiling went out of fashion in Europe. In many places, however, it was officially abolished only much later, in France, for example, only in 1791. In 2015, the NGO Human Rights Watch accused the government of Uzbekistan of torturing suspected terrorists by boiling them, and ISIS and the cartels of Mexico allegedly still use this method of execution today.